College basketball heat check. Yes, yes. You know the logo. My man Eli couldn't join us this evening, but we are excited to have a super special guest, associate head coach from Colorado. They have another 20-win season yet again, sneaking below the radar and playing some elite level basketball. Just had a monster win against the new team, number 2 team in the country, and they are headed into the Pac-12 tournament playing their best ball. And we look forward to talking to Coach all about it. So we'll bring him in. Hold on, Coach. That's not accurate. All right, now we're good. What up, Coach? How you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, super excited to have you, man. So I don't even know where to start, but there's been so much success. I guess let's just start with you linking up with Coach and then you guys taking this job and how you've built this thing. Because I think people sometimes kind of forget how long you guys have done this successful thing. And when you got there, it wasn't necessarily a basketball place. So talk a little bit about that before we talk about this year's team, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think going back those 12 years, I just think Coach Boyle was the perfect guy at the right time for the job at the University of Colorado. And, it was always a special place for him. He grew up in Greeley.
Right.
And it was always his dream job, without a doubt. He talked about it all the time, when we were assistants at Wichita State. And as I knew him before that, he just thought there was so much potential there. So, it was a great opportunity for him. And Coach Bezdelic, had some good players in the program, that the coach was able to re-recruit and keep here. And, 12 years later, this is just kind of where we're at, and sustaining success in college basketball is not an easy thing,
No.
as you know. And we've been very fortunate to coach some good guys. And, they talked the other day after we beat Utah, you talked about our 20th win. It was our 9th, 20 win season in our, in our 12 years. And I think there was 13 total in the history of Colorado basketball. So
Wow.
It's kind of an interesting stat there that,
wow.
Kind of gives, some background to, like you were talking about earlier, like, Coach has done a really good job here, obviously.
Yeah, and so we'll jump into 2 things you mentioned. Coach, so that'll be the second one to talk a little bit about Coach. But also, this year's team is younger, much younger. We lost an elite NBA player in McKinley Wright. So talk about this team and the youth to get to 20 wins. It has to feel a little bit, because it's not like people thought that this team was a 20-win team. And then what do you think it is that makes Coach? Obviously, you've been with him for an extreme amount of time and have a great relationship with him. What is it that makes him so good at what he does? Because, again, I think it's an underappreciated gem in college basketball, in my opinion, that doesn't maybe get – it's not a blue blood. It's not a traditional name that people associate with basketball. But – and we'll talk about the pros later. But, I mean, the track record speaks for itself. So share those 2 things in any order.
Yeah, well, I'll start with, our team this year. We thought this team had a lot of potential, even though we were young. You talked about us losing McKinley, but we lost to Sean Schwartz. We lost, Jeriah Horn, Dallas Walt. We lost a lot of really good seniors on last year's team, Maddox Daniels as well. And, just a big-time team. But we had a lot of good young players, that maybe didn't get to play as much last year and kind of waited their turn. And, we were really excited about our freshman class. And so, we felt like this team had a lot of potential. We thought naturally we might, struggle a little bit early. But sometimes, young teams, if they play, and they get on the court, they grow pretty fast through opportunity. And so, I think we thought this team had a lot of potential. As we got going early in the season, we knew we'd have some rough stretches. And then obviously when we hit some injury bug there, the alarm started going off a little bit more. But, just a team that's, a very connected group, great kids in that locker room. So, when adversity hits, you can withstand some of that adversity a little bit, and kids are resilient. So we got a great locker room. We got great leadership from our seniors. particularly Evan Batty, who's as good a leader as I've ever coached. So, those things gave this team the potential to definitely win 20 games. And I think we still have a little bit more in us. You alluded to Coach Boyle a little bit. There's so many qualities with Coach Boyle, that make him a winner. He's just, he's obviously a really good basketball coach, because you're just not going to have success if you can't X and O a little bit. But that's probably, even if you asked him, that may not even be what he would say is his strength. I think he's just a great leader. People follow him. People play. The guys play hard for him. He has a really good balance of knowing how to press them a little bit and get the most out of them, but he also has that ability to connect with guys, and just a very classy, intelligent guy. Which I think is very important. It's just like this big CEO of Colorado basketball, and so a lot of qualities that he brings to the table. And we talked a little bit earlier about this being his dream job. I mean, passionate every day. Yep. Obviously day one I was with him. That first year, you're always going to have a little bit more passion, right? You're just getting started. But I'm telling you what, like, you wouldn't think this was year 12 with his passion is the same. His intensity is the same. And so, it's a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been to practice. So 2 things you mentioned that I wanted to highlight too. Evan Batty, I could tell my first day at practice, and I don't remember particularly paying in-depth attention to Colorado last year. I knew the young man from Beaumont, I'm drawing a blank on it, Parquette, Elijah.
Yeah.
And I knew McKinley just from him being a dynamic player, and watching those 2 guys, but I didn't really pay attention to the whole at that time. And so I go into practice, and I just remember thinking, like, this guy right here is special as far as leadership. I've been in a lot of practices myself from coaching and then just observing, and like, he stood out as an outlier as far as his ability to lead. So we're going to talk about him for sure, but there's a part about Coach too in practice where his expectation is very high. His demand, he's not afraid to hold people to that because he wants greatness, but he loves to teach the game. It's so obvious. Like, he loves to teach the game and to make sure that players understand like exactly what Colorado basketball is, which I thought that is so important because you need clarity in order to have that consistency. And that comes from him. And you could tell, like, it doesn't matter what class or whatever that is, because I do think there's a part of development that coach sees something that if you embrace kind of that CU, he embraces you, and then that it allows you these players to take off that maybe people didn't think was going to be a 20-win team. So I'm kind of taking some of that and running with it. But Evan Batty, share a little bit about him if you don't mind, and then the part we'll go next after that is I'm curious for people to know your story, how you even got to where you are in this journey too, because you play a very important role in this whole thing too.
Yeah, well, Evan Batty, I could talk about Evan Batty for the rest of the night. He's anytime you get to coach a player for 5 years, Evan came here as a academic redshirt. His freshman year, he was in the same class with McKinley, Deshaun Schwartz, Tyler Bay. Those 4 guys were like the best of friends. They were brothers, right, from day one.
Which real quick to jump in, that was an awesome video that you guys played on senior night. And I want to allude to that because on senior night, you guys beat the number 2 team in the country, Arizona. And for him to have a senior night and win that and lead the team to win that game is so fitting, it felt like, for his career. And again, I'm coming at the tail end, but it felt like the perfect storybook ending to a career for a guy who just embodies everything that this program is about. So I wanted to mention that because I thought that class he came in with, that video was really nice.
It was cool. And, that was very heartfelt from all of them,
yep.
And not a lot of people know, how close those guys are unless you're really connected to the team.
Right.
And that they came in that same class. So that was really cool. And yeah, he's like the mayor here, he's so much, Coach did an interview the other day, and he's spot on. Like, Evan is so much more than just a basketball player. Like, he's been on all kinds of committees and different things outside of basketball. And our fans have really grown attached to him, mostly because he's just very passionate, about not only playing basketball, but he's passionate about playing for the University of Colorado, and he's passionate about his teammates. And that's kind of a rare quality sometimes in today's day and age. But, just one of the most special kids you'll ever coach. We had a great senior class again this year, with Eli Boettger. Unfortunately, Eli, hurt his foot and had to have surgery, and Bennon and Will. It's a really good class, and there was not a better way for them to go out, and it was a fitting end to what you would want, their senior night, and his, maybe in particular, just because he was here 5 years. He sacrificed, right, his freshman year. He actually had a stroke. Most people around here know that Evan had a stroke his freshman year when he was redshirting, and wasn't sure he was ever going to play again. And, had to go through, a lot after Christmas. He had it like right before Christmas, actually, when he was back home in California over the break, and had to do a lot of speech therapy and, a lot of testing to try to figure out, maybe what it was. And there was a point in time there where, he was maybe unsure if he was going to ever play again, but, he was a resilient kid, and, luckily, and, through faith, the kid, has gotten to this point. So his story is, for Buff fans, is a little unique, and adds a little more, I guess, drama to it.
Right.
And people are just very heartfelt about what he's given to this place. So unbelievable kid. You get 5 years with him. Wish it could be every year. He'll probably come back. He told everybody senior night he's going to come back and be the head coach. So maybe I'll be coaching for him someday and trying to help him, but he'll be able to do it. Just a special kid, special family. We knew it from day one when we recruited him. He was our guy. We knew we had to get him, and he's just been special ever since.
Yeah, the day I came to practice, I could tell he not only did he just have a sense of wearing Colorado, like it meant a lot to him. He was so invested and so in tune, but his communication about what was going on, he very coach-like,
Oh, yes.
Very, not only just like, hey, this play is this, but like time, feel, mood of practice, where coach is at during, I always like to watch during water breaks. Like, what are you guys doing? Some guys go in their own world. Some guys kind of just like joke and play. He was trying to find ways to touch guys to make them better. He just has it. You can't teach that type of stuff. So,
no,
very, very, very cool to see. And he plays with so much passion. You almost have no choice but to be a part of that, and he smiles and he has this personality. So, yeah, super cool. Share with us how you got into coaching, how you got connected to Coach Boyle, and obviously the program is a lot involved, but your role is as important as any as the right-hand man to coach. So just talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I always knew when I was young I was probably going to be a coach. I was a sports fanatic. I grew up in a small town where, you played every sport. And, I was just passionate about every sport I played. And all my coaches when I was in junior high and high school just always said, hey, man, you're going to be a coach someday. Like, and at the time, I really didn't think about it. You're just having fun and playing. And once I got to college, I studied education and knew that's probably the route I was going to go.
Right.
Because I definitely didn't want to go back to Northwest Kansas and work on a farm or anything like that. When I was like I did when I was growing up. So, I kind of always just had it in my blood, so to speak. And, it's just very fortunate. I'm a little different because I've coached a lot of different levels.
Yep.
You may not know, I coached NAIA basketball. I've coached Division II. I was a junior college coach for 8 years. And, obviously then I've been fortunate to be at some really good universities in Wichita State and Texas A&M. And Coach Boyle and I got, hooked up through a mutual friend, a really good friend that he went to college with, actually, at the University of Kansas is from my hometown. And so that's kind of how I initially got to know Coach Boyle. And then when I was coaching in junior college, he was, working at Oregon. Then he was at Jacksonville State, and he recruited some of my players. And so we just struck up a little bit of a relationship there. And I just got really lucky. I was a head coach at a junior college, and Mark Turgeon became the head coach at Wichita State. And I was just lucky enough that, he brought me on staff with them. And so Coach Boyle and I and Jean Prelo, who was on our staff here as well, we were the three assistants at Wichita State with Mark Turgeon. And then obviously Coach Boyle left and got the head job at UNC Greeley in his hometown, and went to Texas A&M. And when Coach Boyle got the job here, Jean Prelo and myself, Coach Boyle asked us if we'd join his staff, and we were excited about doing it because we believed in him, and we knew he could do a great job here, and he believed in us. And anytime somebody believes in you, it's a powerful thing. So, been doing it for a long time, and I love it to this day.
Yeah, no doubt. What is it that makes you? I mean, you get pretty fueled up about this basketball thing, Coach, and a lot of people that are in it do. But I don't know, there's some passion sticks out more than others, for me at least. And there's kind of this, maybe because of the levels that you've been at, that kind of shows this humble beginnings and this like, I love this game no matter if it's the biggest game and we're playing on television against Arizona, UCLA, Oregon, or if it's in this small cracker box gym in wherever America, coaching junior college. So what is it that you love, you think that's your kind of your why in this thing?
Well, my why is just because I enjoy working with kids, and you get to do it through coaching basketball. And basketball is always my favorite sport. It was my passion. And so, you get an opportunity to impact people, young people, that's my why. I mean, I think most people that get into coaching, that's their why, but whether or not they can sustain it, is can be challenging, especially when you have a family. And so, that's why I coach. And, like you said, I've coached at NAI, I've coached junior college. I've been on a bus driving the bus, getting home at 2 or 3 in the morning. So, I think I've got a good background and a way to, just stay grounded a little bit through the whole thing, because obviously being at the University of Colorado, it's a special place.
Yep.
You're at a high level, it's pretty awesome and cool in a lot of ways. But stressful, as you know, but that's why I do it. I love to see the guys get better every day. And this team is, so much fun because they're a young group, and you see these young guys out there and they start, having better habits, as the year goes on, where, they understand why they're doing some things. And young teams are fun to coach sometimes in that regard, because you see growth. I wish we had a few more older guys, because, college basketball, you got to be a little older these days. But, Evan Batty's our old guy, and he's probably enough with this young group.
No doubt. Well said. So Colorado basketball, for my trip there's a really cool new kind of background wallpaper in one of the lobbies, right? And it has naturally some of the coaches, head coach at Portland, Chauncey Billups, head coach in Orlando. I'm drawing a blanket coach's name.
Jamal Mosley. Yeah.
Jamal Mosley. So you have 2 former players that are NBA head coaches now, but you also have a wall full of NBA players, including there's so many of them. I don't even know if I can even bring them to mind, but I'll pass it to you and just talk a little bit about that wall, what that means. And a lot of those stories, from what I remember, my takeaway from Colorado program is like, they're not the guys, that people were celebrating coming in saying, oh, that guy's going to be in the NBA.
Right.
That guy's going to be in the NBA. And naturally the players have to do the work. So I don't want to take that away from them, but there is something consistent, just like that winning, that is allowing that process to happen. Can you talk a little bit about and share on that?
Yeah, we do have our NBA wall. It's in our office, and you know, the one of the main things that Coach Boyle wanted to do from day one when he got here was celebrate the former players. Didn't matter whether they were an NBA player
Right.
or whether they were a walk-on player. He's always made it a priority to celebrate any former player and bring them back. And we've had different reunions for each year. Celebrating the former coach and bringing guys back just so former players could connect with each other again and be around our guys. And coach talks about, who we play for every day, all the former players that ever played here. And it's just nice to get former players back.
For
and,
sure.
For them to see all the new stuff that our guys have now that they didn't have, is good for our players to learn from them and listen to them and some of their stories. So, I think it's one of the things that coach has done a fantastic job of is to bring all former players back. But we do celebrate the NBA guys on that wall, and it's a special group. We've had, I think, 7 of them now in our 12 years that have gotten drafted. And you alluded to a little bit of not a lot of those guys. Actually, none of them were McDonald's All-Americans, or I don't even think any of them were top 50 players, to be honest with you. And they were just guys like you said. They put in the work.
Yep.
And
they did a lot of this, Coach. This was they rolling up their sleeves.
They rolled up their sleeves, and it's just really good to see a lot of their success. This year at the NBA trade deadline, Spencer Dinwiddie went from the Wizards to Dallas, and Derek White, who's a big time Colorado favorite because he's a local kid, went from the Spurs to the Celtics, and so
great.
We've had to change that wall a few times.
I know you
uniforms,
new uniform, but they both great trades for both individuals and teams because we know Dallas needed more help. There's another ball handler, another playmaker, and they got one, and he's played some terrific basketball since he's been there. So I think that was a great move at the right time too. I think just being a winner, being able to be kind of back in that space, and then White was they've played terrific since they've gotten him, and have a chance in the East to kind of keep trending up. So cool to see both those guys and their stories. And Derek White's story is cool because he played Division II first before he got to Colorado.
Yeah, Derek was a senior in high school. We had a really good recruiting class. We had 3 Colorado kids we signed in his class. Josh Scott, Wesley Gordon, and Xavier Talton, all in that same senior class in Colorado. And, Derek was like maybe 6 foot, 150 pounds in the Colorado All-Star game that year. With the same really high hair, and he could play a little bit, but you had no idea what it was going to evolve into. And it helps when you grow 4 or 5 inches. When you get to college, didn't happen for me, but that helps. And so it was cool to see and talk about a kid that worked really hard. To even though he grew, he worked really hard to get where he was, and took a year, here to redshirt, and was amazing that year. We knew how good he was to begin with, after his 3rd year at UCCS, and then that year he redshirted, it was just like, oh my, he's really a special player.
Yep. So let's talk about this year's team real quick. Very cool to kind of see how it's progressed, right? But to be really kind of per KenPom, top 50 in defense and then top 105 in offense, have a balance that's probably people thought it was going to be one-sided, like, they're going to have to grind out games in their own defense. But your offense has been able to find its way as you have younger players that continue to develop, like you said. So I guess what's the part about this team that you enjoy and that you're looking forward to seeing how they continue to respond in March?
Yeah, well, the thing I enjoy the most about this team is they just got a great spirit about them. We had a tough stretch. I think we lost 3 in a row, and had some guys get hurt, and it was just a tough stretch. And the resiliency of them, and their ability to try to stay positive and keep lifting their teammates a little bit, during a tough stretch, where you got to challenge them a little bit. And so, they're fun to coach in that regard, because they just soak it all up, and they want you to coach them. And so that's what has made this team very fun. And we've had some guys just keep getting better as the year goes on. And Jabari's been pretty consistent all year long. And believe it or not, Evan Batty is he leads the Pac-12 in 3-point shooting. Nobody would ever guess that,
right?
But just a tribute to how hard he's worked, because it's just something that's evolved through his career. He was.
I saw a cool thing on that, Coach. If you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah,
I think it was one of your support staff shared it with me, but I was talking about Evan with him, text exchange, and he shared with me one of your managers that is like kind of Evan's go-to guy that he attributed on senior night, I believe, even just like him put the time in for him to work on his shooting, because that's a new part of his game that he's added to be even more efficient. I didn't know he was leading the Pac-12 in 3-point percentage, but that's even more. So shout out to the behind the scenes, to the manager that he spoke about.
Oh yeah, that kid's a special kid, and managers are a big part of every program. And Evan does have one, that he kind of he makes him come with him all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the best passer, or he knows his routine, but Evan is, he's done it through an unbelievable routine, whether it be before practice, after practice, on shoot around, on game day. We'll have a group down on one end, playing a shooting game, having some fun. And then Evan will be on the other end, and he's all business, going through his pregame rituals. So, it's been cool to see that element of his game has helped our offense significantly, because he's going to draw the other team's center, because he's 265 pounds.
Yep.
And when your center has to come away from the basket and guard that, it just opens things up for Jabari, who's a fantastic player, anywhere on the court, but he's pretty darn good 15 feet and in, and he's a tough matchup. And so it allows him to have some space in there, because Evan's such a good shooter, and it takes shot blockers away from the rim. So that's helped our offense a lot, other than other guys just kind of, figuring out what their role is. Young guys sometimes need to figure out, okay, what am I good at? What can I help the team with? And what do I need to stay away from? We're still trying to stay away from the turnover bug as much as we can, but we've improved. And Coach Bull's teams are always going to guard. If you don't guard, it's going to be hard for you to get on the court. But when we're clicking a little bit on offense and we cover, got a chance to beat anybody.
No doubt. No doubt. All right, we always end, Coach, with a funny or good story. We had to change it because funny was hard because it had to be air appropriate. So it can be a good story, but just a good story or a funny story about either this team, your career, life as a dad, anything that may just be a good one to end on.
Well, in today's world, this may be funny, about me, bring my family into it a little bit too. But nowadays in the locker room, there's cameras everywhere, right? There's cameras in the warm-ups. There's cameras on the bus. There's cameras when you're eating. There's just a camera everywhere. You don't know who's got the camera, but there's a camera.
You don't know where it's going.
Yeah. And so, I probably celebrated a little too much after one of the games on the road not too long ago. And
okay.
The camera might have caught me dancing, which is not good. And so, I try to avoid that now, but I got on camera a little bit with that, celebrating with the guys. And I don't think it made my girls real happy, because they're like, Dad, you can celebrate, but you cannot do some of that stuff dancing wise. So I don't know if that's funny. It's kind of funny to me.
Was it a particular move that you did, or it's just?
Nah, I was just
in the zone.
Mosh pitting it with the guys. Or, I was probably trying to do something, but I try to stay away from that stuff anymore.
That's a good thing. So your girls saw the footage and they were like, "Dad, you're embarrassing."
Yeah.
What?
they're always looking at all that Twitter and Instagram, and as you know, and they'll call me out. So I try to refrain from it, but when you celebrate, sometimes like who cares?
You gotta let it out. Who cares? When you win, you gotta let that out because you know how hard it is.
Oh yeah,
to get those wins. Most people see it and they're like, "Why is he dancing so hard?"
Yeah.
It's like if you knew how hard it was to get this win,
Yeah.
you'd be dancing probably even harder than I am. So, no, we appreciate the time, Coach. This was awesome. So much respect. You've always been great to me and my time in college basketball, and even now that I'm a fellow Colorado. How do you say this? Coloradoan? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I get that wrong sometimes, so I'm going to refrain from it. But I claim it. I
won't even call you out. But yes, now that I'm a fellow Colorado native, yes, you've been also awesome to me. So best of luck in the tournament. Best of luck this offseason, and looking forward to seeing this program continue to stay consistent and still keep climbing, man.
We got more to do.
Any last words you have before you go, and we'll let you get ready.
No, I just appreciate you having me on. I'm glad you're in Colorado, and just take care of that family, man.
Yep, will do, Coach. Well, thanks so much.
All right.